let's give them something to cheer for now.
First of all, what kind of mythical powers does a Sun Devil have? We got to consider that.
Time now for the College Football Inquirer. Here's Pat, Russ, and Dan.
All right, welcome to the pod, and I got to say, you degenerates out in Iowa. Small state, lots of noise.
Always, man. This is very often an Iowa podcast.
Drinking water, non-touchdown scoring, psychopaths in Iowa.
Non-touchdown scoring psychopaths. That does kind of wrap it up. Football
I think
season.
that does it, right? It does it.
Yeah.
You got it covered, yeah.
Okay, Good show. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, see ya.
Keokuk
all
versus
spend some-
Ames.
Iowa, go into like you need a timeout. You need a timeout.
You do.
Go to the third step, sit there for about 10 minutes. We have a slew of suspensions at both Iowa and Iowa State for student athletes and others gambling, the scourge of sports wagering. University I said 111 individuals had been flagged in the investigation, including 26 student athletes in baseball, football, men's basketball, men's track and field, wrestling, and then one full-time employee at the Iowa Athletic Department who will probably be soon to be an ex-employee. This is from the Des Moines Register. And then Iowa State said they had 15 players involved. The bigger story is Iowa saying that they're being investigated for both NCAA violations and potential criminal conduct related to sports wagering. So that is the criminal conduct's the big one. I don't know if Brad Bohannon has been calling the state. I don't know what's been going on. But
the Alabama baseball coach, deposed Alabama baseball coach.
Former
a bunch of
Alabama,
Bohannons played basketball at Iowa. No relation that we know of.
That guy calls you. Just don't take it. Just don't take the call. He's got free time. Who knows what he's up to? Anyway, the criminal conduct one is particularly interesting. The others, I don't know. I don't know what you guys got, but they're not. They seem to be more involved with student athletes gambling on something, sports wagering on something, not necessarily game fixing or, Jimmy Two Nose hanging out at the corner in Ames, offering extra water if you maybe take a run off the board. I don't know. Boot that grounder. What are you hearing, Pat? What are you hearing here? And how big of a scandal is this? I don't care that the guys are gambling. People will pay with suspensions and stuff if they were. Don't gamble. If you're on the team, don't gamble. It's like simple.
Yeah.
Zero tolerance. But
that's
what
the
else
thing. If you may disagree with the rule, but it's a rule. It's an NCAA, very clear NCAA rule. There are posters all over the place at every school. Everybody harps on it. It's kind of like what I used to tell my kids. If you don't like if you think the speed limit is too low, you can go in front of the judge and say, I think the speed limit's too low. This is an unfair ticket. Well, unfair, in my opinion, don't go very far. So if you broke the rule, you're going to be hit with an eligibility penalty. And this could be significant for some Iowa athletes, specifically on a pretty good baseball team, it seems like. But, one thing that was pointed out by the Iowa, I guess the Gaming Commission, while there is an alleged criminal element of the investigation, there's no suspicion that this was Iowa players fixing their own games or anything like that. There's no run fixing, game fixing, any of that stuff believed to be involved here. This could be, and we don't know. We don't know what it is, but it could be players, betting on an NCAA tournament pool, betting on an NBA game or something like that. But the rules are that you can't bet on any sport in which the NCAA has a championship. So, maybe you could bet on the Tour de France or something, or a horse race, but that might be about it. Some quick info.
You can bet on the NBA. I thought you couldn't sports wager at all.
No, exactly.
Right. I see. A sport. Oh, so you could bet cycling.
Yeah. There's to my knowledge, there's no NCAA sponsored.
What about meat judging?
Meat judging, I think you can go for it, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything the NCAA doesn't sponsor.
If you can
It
get
would be
a
great if
line,
they sponsored meat judging, though. Didn't Texas A&M or something win that? Didn't we talk
bet
about
on
that
the Texas schools? I'll tell you that.
yeah,
right
Texas
now.
A&M, Texas Tech, they're juggernauts in the meat judging realm.
Yeah.
So, here's a little bit of information from some folks here involved. Student athletes would have to be declared ineligible by the school, then go through a reinstatement process. And typically the reinstatement process would look at the circumstances, how much was wagered, what sport was the team at the same school. Like, if you're Iowa, were you betting on the Iowa? If you're Iowa baseball players, were you betting on the Iowa basketball team or the Iowa women's basketball team? That could be probably a bigger issue than if you were betting on the NBA. So those are all things that would have to be considered and go into it. And then there would be, reinstatement process, and you could be knocked out for, who knows, X number of games. And at this point in the season, it could end your baseball season.
This is like the least surprising thing ever, right? When you talk to gambling folks and those within college athletics, they kind of all expected, with the legalization of gambling, sports gambling, we're going to have this. And I'm looking at a chart that's really interesting that was put out by the NCAA, I think maybe 2 years ago, a year or two ago. And it's basically polled student athletes about sports wagering. Student athletes reported wagering on sports within the last year, and they break it down to male and female. 24% of male student athletes reported wagering on sports within the last year, 5% female. 9% of male athletes, college athletes, reported wagering on sports at least once a month or more within the last year. 1 in 50 male college athletes meet the standard diagnostic criteria for a problem gambling. So it was pretty obvious that this was we were going to have some issues. And as one college official mentioned to me, I tweeted it out yesterday, the day before, but like, this is not going to stop with Iowa, the state of Iowa, right? It's going to keep on going, and we're going to have these pop throughout the country. It does seem like the Iowa Gaming Commission, I guess what it's called, did kind of a sweep or got a tip about something. Maybe, like Pat kind of suggested there, maybe it was some kind of like March Madness pool. The word criminal in the release is really interesting. And, if it's not wagering, point shaving, whatever, fixing their own games, then things it could be, right, would be like underage gambling, I guess. I'm sure that could be one thing. But I mean, I'm just going back to my college days. Many college kids have a bookie in college who usually they go to class with sometimes. So that also could be it, or the criminal behaviors that they're illegally betting with some random bookie who's not, licensed or whatever. So, I mean, it's not a surprise. And I'm guessing athletes will learn from these things as they start coming out, and just like NIL in a way, it'll like plateau off. But I got a question. Should it be illegal for college athletes or staff members to bet on professional sports?
NCAA or legal?
Well, yeah. Should it be against NCAA rules for college athletes to bet on professional sports?
Well, let me say this first of all. I think this does stop at Iowa. I think it's only people in Iowa that would do this. I think people who live in Iowa, they get that sweet corn, they have a pork tenderloin sandwich, and nefarious conduct results. So no, don't just throw it on the other 49 states, us residents of the other 49. We're not getting dragged down to Iowa level. They're people
drunk
are
on pure water.
Yes. Rolling hills and cycling through cornfields. It's kind of They like to tell you they got this little. No. Look, and just one point of just before I answer Ross's question, which is an excellent question. There was a Virginia Tech linebacker last year, Alan Tisdale. He self-reported gambling a little more than 400 on the NBA. He got hit by a 9-game suspension that on that appeal that Pat was talking about got down to 6. So if there's any football involved, but that, that's half a season. So
yeah.
And if we lose Caitlin Clark over this, I'm not going to be pleased. I'm not going to.
Yeah. Please tell us Caitlin Clark wasn't.
I know
wasn't
she took a square at the Super Bowl, and now we lose it for a year. Like, come on, man. But no. Should they be? I would say this. I don't know. Yeah, I would generally say yeah, but I think that there's so many players. This is not one of those things I'm really like. If this is it is an honor. It is a privilege to play college athletics. And if this is one of the deals you got to give up, this is what you got to give up. NFL, 0 tolerance. You can bet other sports, but you can't bet them at the team facility. Like Jamison Williams from the former Alabama player. Is at the line. He got 6 games just for logging, betting on his online gaming account using the Lions Wi-Fi. Had driven down the street and made the bet on his data plan, he would have been fine. He lost 6 games. That's a lot of money. You lose your game checks in the end, So they have
He'll get it back gambling, Dan.
What's that?
He'll get it back.
Get it back. Yeah, get it back up.
Yeah.
Get back.
What is the NFL rule, Dan? So the NFL rule is you can't bet on NFL games.
If you bet on NFL games, you're
from
out
the facility.
Out for a year, I think. And then, you no wagering at the facility, like straight up nothing. Yeah. Do not, and this is, and so then so I would say this. It's probably best, and it's look, I'm usually the one that just doesn't care about these rules. I wouldn't really care about this, but
guardrails.
The guardrails. If they got rid of them, just said, hey, do whatever you want, just don't bet on college sports. That's probably too confusing of a situation. And trying to police that would be, it's probably better to just say, look, you can't gamble. Whatever profession you get into, there's certain professions there's certain things you can't do.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you're on Wall Street, you're not allowed to take a gift from this type of person for more than $200, right? Like where someone else can be like, yeah, I can get on they can give me a car, right? Or there's different stuff. There's ethics. And if this is the deal, so be it. I think it might be, it's easier to try to guard against what's a real problem in just saying, look, man, if you're on one of these teams, you work for one of these teams, you can't gamble. Just don't.
Right.
That's probably the best route here, even though I'm generally anti-guardrails, because anything else is going to be hard. The issue here, though, is the online gambling, the legalized gambling is how they're catching these guys now.
Yeah.
Like Ross said, I had a bookie in my dorm. We had a bookie that used to come by our house every week. Campus people have been betting. College kids have been betting on games for a long, long time. It's just now they're logging into their account and they're getting caught.
Yeah, either I led a sheltered existence or I'm so damn old that I lived in a different era. But when I went through 4 years at the University of Missouri, I never knew anybody that bet on sports. I never bet myself. I didn't know a bookie.
If you had gone to Iowa, you had gone to
or UMass or Mississippi State, apparently.
Yeah.
And no, I've heard plenty about it at other places, and from what I've heard anecdotally here recently, just that. With the ease of doing it on your phone and the legality of it having spread, that it has skyrocketed on a lot of campuses. That there is a lot of sports wagering going on, hopefully responsibly, because, we know college kids don't necessarily drink responsibly. They might not gamble responsibly, but, do your best out there, folks. But no, I think, Dan, I agree with you that I think you would get into a blurry situation that would not end well in terms of you can bet on some things, but not on others. And if there is such a base level prohibition fear, basically, of gambling impacting the outcome of games at the pro level or at the college level, that they're not, I don't think they would ever go for a kind of half and half thing. Well, yeah, you can bet on pro sports, but not on college sports. There's just, I mean, the pro sports don't want their games being tampered with, fixed, and the college sports sure don't either, because that's one quick road to losing a lot of credibility and a lot of revenue, I would imagine.
It just seems, I don't know. I see all the rules that the NCAA has had over the years, and we see a lot of them starting to crumble. And this just reminds me of some of them. I mean, obviously betting on your own team, right, is pretty clearly an issue and should be against the rules. But, for a 21-year-old, college student athlete, to not be able to, place a bet on the NBA or Major League Baseball just is odd to me. But I get what you guys are saying. I want to go back to some of these numbers because they're pretty fascinating. 49%. This is a great stat. 49% of male college athletes who bet on sports think they can consistently make a lot of money on the activity.
Yeah.
Also, 23% in the same question, 23% of female college athletes think they can make money consistently. See, the females, they're way smarter than us.
Yeah, that poll answer tells everything you need to know about like a lot of things right there.
Yes.
I also believe like 70% of all valedictorian high school, over 70% of all high school valedictorians are now female.
Is that right?
Like, yeah. It's like, and the dudes are like, yeah, but I'm on FanDuel. Like, Curry's going to get 8 assists tonight. I got this, geez. Yeah.
Here's another male female one too. That's really good. This is at 54%. So over half of male college athletes think sports wagering is, quote, a harmless pastime. 31% of female college athletes say it is a harmless pastime.
Yeah. It's also correct.
Hey, one thing you brought up there real quick, Dan, about like prop bets. I talked to an official in one of the major sports leagues over the weekend, actually at the Kentucky Derby, who was there, and they were very concerned about where prop bets were going. Not necessarily at their level, but if there's prop bets at lower levels where people are not making tens of millions of dollars, but where it would be easier to get a guy. If there are props in college, I don't know if there are. I mean, I don't do this stuff, but if you can get a college player and say, hey, your over under on rebounds is 12, might help us if you came in at 10. That there might be a little bit more susceptible to get guys to shave a rebound, shave an assist, shave points to get an outcome.
Prop bet, I mean, that no question. And prop bet, if you aren't gambling, and I'll get to kind of this point in a sec, but, over under on 10 or who gets the first, some prop bets can be, the Super Bowl's famous for them, right? Like, how long is the national anthem? Which team fumbles first, stuff like that. What's the first turnover? I mean, we have seen in sports players manipulate stats. There's a very famous video of Rob Gronkowski needing another reception, and he gets a $1 million bonus, and he tells Tom Brady before the game, one of them's mic'd up, I need one and I get $1 million. And then there's somewhere in the third quarter, Brady's like, he goes back to Brady. He's like, Tommy, I ain't got my thing. And Brady goes out there and says, right here. And they run a little not like a little out, right? It wasn't quite a screen pass. And he hits them. And then Gronk's like, I got my millie, he's singing. But like, that's a straight up deal.
Yeah.
Now it's funny and it's the Bucks million, but what if it's Gronk needs what would you bet Gronk is going to catch one catch, right? We see in the NBA all the time, guys try to get triple doubles. They stay in, whatever they got to do. And so, what if you miss a couple shots and rebound your own shot?
Yep.
Yeah, very, 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 very scary. This, I think, the big issue with the college kids gambling. I mean, gambling's more prevalent. There was always sports wagering, but
Yes.
like you said, you didn't have a bookie on your floor. Okay, you weren't around it. Or when you got to college, maybe that was the first time you're exposed to sports wagering in any way, and you'd be like, "Well, what is that? I don't even know what that is. I'm not filling out that football card. What's the point spread?" Now, with the prevalence of the advertising, which is literally nonstop, the leagues, the schools, everybody getting in bed with these things,
Yeah.
and quite honestly, the media finally being able to discuss it, not just like Jimmy the Greek on NFL, kind of alluding to something, but straight up shows on ESPN and everywhere, and everyone just openly talking about it. The industry should grow considerably because of that. And I don't think it's not taboo or unknown. It's something. So it's fair. That is a fair criticism of, if you're going to get in bed with these gambling sports wagering companies. Yeah, all of a sudden you're promoting sports wagering. It's not a surprise that part of the people who see the promotion and understand it are your own student athletes.
Sure. Absolutely. Yes, it's there. And there are universities that have sponsorship deals with athletic.
I think Iowa's one of them.
It might be. I mean, there's plenty of them out there. But it is amazing, too, just the evolution of this and the rapid evolution. I remember when I worked at ESPN, somewhere from 2004 to 2011, might have been the whole time, they would take point spreads out of my stories. Like, they didn't even want you to mention the spread of a game in a story. And now they've got entire shows dedicated to betting spreads. So.
Yeah, it is amazing how it's been embraced, but I guess it's like all things through time, right? I mean, we had prohibition on alcohol, and now, you just look at different things that through time becomes accepted, and gambling is one of those accepted behaviors.
Well, I'll give you this, and I just looked up, the date's kind of coincidental, but I thought it was 5 years ago. It was 5 years ago. May 14th, 2018 is when the Supreme Court struck down the 92 law that banned gambling, and it was only allowed in a couple states. It was like Delaware and Nevada and stuff like that. So it was 5 years ago. At 5 years ago, the NFL, the NBA, I think the NBA kind of bailed on it a little, but the NFL and the NCAA were literally defendants in the case, or trying to, they were offering support, sending in support statements or whatever they used, whatever term they use at the Supreme Court level, to try to keep sports wagering illegal. 5 years. And now it's like, hey, welcome to PointsBet Stadium. And it's a wonder the yard signs don't spin with the thing. So here we are. My jokes about Iowa aside, every school is going to have 20 kids. I mean, it's just, they are, and this needs to be a continuous education process. Just like, look, man, you just can't. I know it sucks. The other kids betting the Lakers Warriors series tonight, but you just can't. There's some things you just can't do, and this is it. And if you don't want to, it's not. I hate treating them differently, but I get this. This isn't like, you can't have an off-campus job, or we're going to take weed super seriously, but not alcohol, and things like that. This. If the sports are believed to be tampered, it can completely change it. So you got to kind of have a zero tolerance. It's not a hill I'm going to die on. It's college athletes' right to gamble.
No.
Go play cards or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Have some guys over to your apartment and play poker. But
or just go to a bookie. Stop getting on an account. Go to the old school bookie. They still exist.
Oh yeah. But no, look. I mean, there are sacrifices scholarship college athletes have to make in a lot of areas, and this is just one of them, in my opinion. I mean, like, I know for swimmers can't go to all the parties when you have to get up and be in the pool at 6 a.m. You have to go to bed earlier than some of your compatriots. I would put this in this category.
All right, let's move on to speaking of suspensions or expulsions.
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia men's basketball coach Bob Huggins. He apologized the Monday afternoon after he used an anti-gay slur multiple times during an appearance on a Cincinnati radio show. He said it's a completely insensitive and abhorrent phrase that there is simply no excuse for. He said, as I've shared with my players over my 40 years of coaching, there are consequences for our words and actions, and I will fully accept any coming my way. I am ashamed, embarrassed, and heartbroken for those I have hurt. I must do better, and I will. He previously said there is simply no excuse for, and I won't try to make one here. It was a good apology. It was a terrible act. What happened was he went on the Bill Cunningham show in Cincinnati, WLW. It's like a huge 50,000 watt station. I don't know how many people listen to AM radio anymore, but he acted like it was 1960, and people did listen to AM radio. Took some shots at Xavier with some stuff. The whole conversation was bizarre. He was talking about Xavier fans throwing, as he called it, rubber penises on the floor. Brought that up. There was a transgender night. I mean, this whole thing was absolutely absurd. I don't even know what to say. There's no excuse for it. I can't even believe someone would say that stuff out loud, let alone on a radio show, and everyone just kind of yuck it up. And the whole thing was just, I honestly, it's like crazy listening to this thing.
Yeah.
You know, you get these ones where someone slip of the tongue, or I don't know. And it's like, like maybe that could happen. I don't know how the hell this happens. I just don't. Really disappointing. Everyone, longtime listeners know I'm a Huggins fan. I have no defense of this. Many of his friends I've spoken to are the same thing. It's just, this is just idiotic. And I don't know. Does this end his career? I don't think West Virginia wants to fire him. I think they'd like to find a way to suspend him, but I don't know if you can. I'm with Huggins. Whatever happens to him happens. He deserves it.
Yeah. Well, so we're taping this at roughly 9:50 a.m.
probably
Wednesday. But I'm surprised nothing's happened yet, which tells me one of two things. They're trying to come up with a separation agreement in which he is gone, or they're coming up with an explanation for why they're going to keep him and come up with and devise a suspension and some other sort of gestures or whatever. Frankly, look, I'm with you, Dan. I like Bob Huggins. I have enjoyed being around him. He is refreshingly candid. Now, if this is the candid Bob Huggins, I've never met that Bob Huggins, and I don't like this Bob Huggins. If that's the candid him, it's disappointing. To your point, the guy Bob Huggins I have known and covered wasn't necessarily this person that I knew of. But you don't know these guys that well. We find out sometimes. What the hell actually happened here just boggles my mind. And I've talked to several other people that have covered Hugs, and I mean, the interview was Monday at like 1:30. My first thought was, did he go to some golf scramble in the morning and throw back bourbon all morning, and was he drunk on the air? Or did he miss the very obvious cue when Bill Cunningham, who is a longtime loudmouth rabble-rouser, kind of, stoke the worst in people sort of radio host. So the transgender night comment doesn't surprise me there. But did he miss the cue when Bill Cunningham says, "You're on the air live"? I don't know. But either way, I was just stunned at this conversation that came about. And Huggins, yes, doubling down on the homophobic slur. To me, I don't know how you recover from that. I don't think you should recover from that necessarily. I don't want to see Bob Huggins' Hall of Fame career end this way, but I think he's deserved to have it end this way. But we'll see what West Virginia University does about it. And again, I'm a little bit surprised that nearly 48 hours later, they haven't done anything. Not even like a suspension while we're going to deliberate on this or anything.
Right,
like
when
that.
there's nothing to do anyway. So
I figure that they would announce, and maybe they have already by the time we post, like we said, but that they would announce a suspension while we review. They said they're reviewing, but there was no suspension, which should probably give you an idea of how sensitive of an issue this is when it comes to Bob Huggins and his standing, I guess, with people in West Virginia. This is and you got a longtime veteran school president, obviously, in Gordon Gee there, who ultimately will make the decision. You would imagine.
Who was once let go from Ohio State after some making jokes about Notre Dame.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Homophobic jokes there, right? No, it was Catholic. It was Catholic jokes.
Catholic jokes, right? Wasn't he?
Yeah. And then you got an athletic director, Ren Baker, who just took that job like 5 or 6 months ago, in pretty young. But Gordon, I would guess, is going to make that decision. And just from talking to folks on Tuesday, I think they'd be surprised if Bob Huggins was fired. I think that there's some folks around there that believe that he'll get some kind of suspension, maybe some kind of financial penalty. I'm sure he'll be sent to some sensitivity class or something, which I'm sure will fix things right up. But so I would imagine that's where they'll go with this. You never know. But I imagine that's where they'll go with this. Somebody else I spoke to who's pretty close to him Tuesday said, well, I don't really think he knew he was on the air. And, my thinking is it really doesn't matter. Right. It doesn't matter.
No.
And,
he was on the air. That's what matters.
He was on the air. And if he wasn't on the air and he said that in a taped conversation that was supposed to be off the record, guess what? It matters less, but it still matters. He still said that, and he still thinks that and believes that's okay to say. So that's an issue. But I'm interested to see where this goes. Bob Huggins is what? How old is
69?
Is he really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize he was up there. That's crazy to me. I didn't realize he was up there.
Does he strike you as particularly youthful looking?
Definitly not 70. Like, I didn't think he was. I would have said he was more like 59 and not 69. But does this
look a day over 68
on a good day?
I wonder if this is the start of, okay, Bob, let's sit down and talk about your final 2 years, right? Like, let's talk about getting you out of here at some point. I wonder if would this be the start of that conversation?
So I thought Jason Williams, the Cincinnati Enquirer, had a really good column on this. Jason covered him for a number of years as a beat writer when Huggs was in Cincinnati. He had a good point. He goes, I don't think Huggins even has an opinion. He doesn't like, it's not he's anti-gay or pro-gay. Like, it doesn't register with him because it's not his focus. And I actually kind of agree with that. Not that it matters, because what he's saying. And to him, this is just outlandish talk and locker room talk or something like that. That isn't quite what Jason said. But Huggins has always been an uplifter of, like, he's the blue collar everyman. And anyone who's kind of downtrodden, I mean, he's a bully with his players. He's a bully of a guy, right? I mean, I think he would admit a lot of that. But at its core, he is the Eastern Ohio, coal country, went to West Virginia, the blue collar guy. And it's not just like in one sense, but like, he would uplift, took chances on players. Obviously, they could all play, but was recruiting kids that other schools wouldn't recruit. He uplifts like the regular dude. And I actually think his sensibilities would actually, if he spent any time thinking about it, and maybe he is now, and maybe this is where we can get something positive out of this, would include, the kids at West Virginia who have to go to school at West Virginia and are gay or, whatever, or have a different lifestyle, right? Which It's not going to be your most progressive campus in the country. And I think he actually would get to that, but he obviously hasn't. And I don't know, like if I don't like just one guy says something and okay, 40 years of life work is out, right? That said, when you're saying it twice, the whole thing was so over the top. I'm not necessarily that guy that's just like, well, that's it, you're done. Because a lot of things can get said that are misconstrued or all that. If they suspend him, I don't know what they're going to do, but I do hope, because I actually think there is a way to have some good if he actually cares, because he can speak to a lot of people who don't want to listen to a message of, hey, maybe we should be a little nicer with our words, or maybe we should be more inclusive. Or, you know what? If he's genuine about like, you know what, I screwed this up, and this kind of language is hurtful, not just screaming about cancel culture or I don't want to hear it or cracking these jokes. And so there is something positive, because Huggins has a lot of credibility with 70-year-old people that maybe aren't sitting around going, oh, that word is wrong. I don't know. Maybe there's something positive, but like I said, if they fire him, they fire him. If they don't, they don't. I don't know how you bring him back, but I think West Virginia is trying to find a way to do it. If they do, Huggins needs to do a lot of work with a lot of the students at West Virginia that his basketball team represents, and real work on what he said and why he said it and why he thought it, and then hopefully use that to educate. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Again, we hopefully we'll be hearing some sort of resolution here in the near future. And it's a big hole to try to climb out of. And there are going to be people in that community who will not forgive him. And I can't blame them necessarily, because those folks are living a somewhat marginalized existence as it is. Not all of them, but there's plenty still of intolerance out there for gay lifestyles or other lifestyles like that. And if any other significant employee at West Virginia publicly said what Bob Huggins said, I can't imagine we would be 48 hours down the road without them being fired. Right. Any of them, including the president, Gordon Gee. So this would be qualified as special treatment for Bob Huggins for an incredibly tone deaf at best, mean spirited at worst set of commentary that happened.
Yeah. Texas Longhorns, Urban Meyer was on a podcast, Urban's Take with Tim May. I guess it's his podcast. I don't know. He noted that the Longhorns' talent, football, is equal to Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. Quote, I think Texas, you don't mention them, but don't sleep on Texas this year. He was talking to
heard that
Ohio
before.
State. Yeah, Texas is back. Urban has joined the Texas is back bit. I was talking to recruiting director at Ohio State. Man for man, roster against roster, it's hard to say Texas doesn't have the best roster in college football. I think what he meant is it isn't hard to say, because if I might say it is hard to say, but that's not what he meant. He thinks Texas has the best roster in college football. I'm sure Sark's sending him flowers. Thanks, Urban, for throwing more pressure on us. Thoughts on Urban hyping up the Horns?
Well, Urban is still around, at least, and connected and watching. He works for Fox, and so he's got some. So
he's talking to Ohio State's recruiting director is saying they got. We wish we had their guys.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I haven't examined it that deeply, but I do know the skill guys they've got coming back and coming in excellent. They should have maybe their best defense in quite a long time. The question is line play, and I do remember talking to Steve Sarkisian last year at Big 12 Media Days, and he was excited that he thinks they finally started recruiting enough really big, powerful guys, and that was maybe where they were lacking the most. And if they get appreciably better at the line of scrimmage on both sides, that could be the missing piece. But as always with Texas, let's believe it when we see it.
Well, I mean, look at the last 2 years of I'm just looking at the last 2 years of recruiting rankings and team rankings. But I mean, this past year they were third in the country. They signed 6 5-stars. Only like a couple other teams signed more. 12 4-stars. And then 2 years ago, they were 5th nationally, signed 2 5-stars and 20 4-stars. So you certainly can't argue with some of the recruiting numbers of the last couple years, and you throw in the transfer portal situation, and they've gotten a few big transfer portal guys, and I mean, yeah, you can see where they obviously have pretty good talent, and they're given also let's throw in some NIL stuff right there. I think they've got a pretty good situation when it comes to NIL. Each lineman's getting the whole pancake thing, $50,000 a year on top of probably some other things. So, we've said it for a decade now. Like, Texas should be better on the field. I don't know why they can't. It's like the biggest mystery is why they can't really put it together. I think if you talk to coaches, a lot of them will say that the Texas players are soft or whatever. They're not as physical, and they don't play as hard, and they don't play to the end, sort of thing. And maybe that's it. Maybe they just need more motivation. But clearly they're talented. Yeah.
Yeah, they've always had great players. This has been the mystery, the country club approach, the idea that when you go to Texas, it appeals to a certain kid that isn't necessarily tough enough. I always found that to be ridiculous, but it's been going on for 20 years. So, wasn't a problem when Sally and I were there. Wasn't a problem. Sally, I'll tell you, Sally said to me, "Make them tough, Coach Mack." I don't know. Anyway, Urban. We'll see. More. Texas is already back, and it's May. We love it. All right,
the best time for Texas to be back in May.
They're back. Can't lose in May. Ain't lost a game all month.
That's right.
This is from Message Board Geniuses.
Oh,
great Twitter follow. They scan the message boards for the most ridiculous takes, and they're usually meltdowns over losses or this or that. And, this one really struck me, though. This is the Clemson board. I'm not sure which one. But it's by someone named Fast Chad. Now, if you know anything about Clemson, their academic standards have gone, it's always been a pretty good school, but they've gone higher and higher. Football helped play a role, and more people are looking at the school, and we've all been to that campus. You get there and go, well, this would be a pretty good place to spend 4 years. So the academic standards of the quality of the student that is getting admitted to Clemson is getting more and more academically accomplished. So this is a great post, whether it's true or not. It's hysterical. Fast Chad, it's titled "Welp, I Got Dumped Again." So sorry for that, Chad. He's really concerned about the smart kids overwhelming Clemson. I have been dating a really smart girl for the past few weeks. This is what Fast Chad wrote. She's like one of those people that can figure out a 15% tip without using a calculator.
Oh my God.
And understands
what a genius.
Look, you'll see. There's a lot of tongue in cheek here, and understands how ships made of steel can still float. I found myself trying to say smart things or do stuff that smart people do, which more often than not backfired. It really started to make me feel bad about myself. I put so much pressure on myself to overcompensate in other areas that I was, quote, unable to perform on Saturday night, if you know what I mean. Sure, I may have drank too much, but that's no excuse. I've been able to deliver in much worse condition in the past. Anyway, this got me thinking. There might be some unintended consequences of Clemson raising its academic standards. We don't need our football stars worrying about impressing dates with algebra or reading novels like The Great Gatsby instead of just watching movies. This could be what's plaguing the Tigers, smart girls. He goes on. The staff should be organizing mixers with schools like Tri-County, Anderson, or SWU. Heck, I would even be okay with our players dating girls that attend schools like Georgia or South Carolina to make them feel better about themselves. The last thing we need is a player getting dumped in the middle of the season because some girl says she's afraid of going out on 4 dates with them, made her feel dumber. Hypothetically, of course. Pat Forde, what is Fast Chad onto something? Is the increased intelligence of the Clemson female student population wreaking havoc on the Tiger football program?
I think. Well, look at the results. Have they played for the national championship lately? No. So clearly, yes, they need to dumb down Clemson again. Get it back to, when if you had a pulse, you could get in, and things will be better, right? Then all of a sudden, it has nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. It has everything to do with the girls at Clemson being too smart and not helping elevate the program by dumbing down the program.
Is this why the SEC has dominated the last 20 years, because they just have a bunch of dumb people walking around campus? Is that what it is?
Send your hate mail to the SEC alum there, not the rest of
that's right. I can say that. Yeah, I can say that. The message board geniuses, it's an amazing account. You got some of these things you scratch your head and think that surely somebody's just screwing with us. This can't be real, but alas, it usually is real. So unfortunately, but it's funny. I was just at Clemson like about a month ago, and this was not exactly this was a topic of conversation, but the academics at Clemson in the raising of the standard and academic standard was a topic of conversation. I just I'm like quick Googling, in about roughly half of those who apply to get into Clemson are rejected. So like I think around 50,000 applied last year, and only 22,000 were accepted, and 5,000 or so enrolled. But it's amazing that university has gone from one thing to another when it comes to academics, and several schools in the South have had that happen. Where the admittance rate is like through the kind of or really low, I should say. Auburn has recently gotten that way. Alabama has gotten that way. Georgia has been that way, I believe. So it's interesting how maybe like sports and the profile of the university, right? Has risen in a way that all of a sudden now they can be a little more selective.
It's also the social media, man. Miami, Florida dropped their acceptance rate dropped 10% this year, and part of it is believed as one woman that went there as an influencer. We talked about her previously. And Bama, the Bama Rush. Now we're gonna have a Bama Rush documentary series on HBO.
Oh yeah, we've been flagged on that one.
I believe we're quite a bit. We are going to have to be the Bama Rush podcast. I'm going to make you guys watch this thing, and we're going to analyze it. You all crapped out on All American with me. Nobody wanted to watch the CW. Now you might if Pac-12's over there. This thing is going to be epic, but you cannot underestimate. And so Clemson has a lot of that. Trevor Lawrence's wife, Marissa Lawrence, and her friends were huge social media. They had a little YouTube show and TikTok. It's unbelievable the power of those things if it gets going. So smart Clemson girls. Dabo's got to get some more people that can't say his name like me. I will say, I believe that the female students at UMass are so smart. That is why we never win a game. The academic,
go with that.
Yes, it's so challenging at the University of Massachusetts that there's no way you can have a football program. The guys feel bad about themselves if they go out on a date with the UMass girls because they just feel stupid. All right, one bit of transfer news. Payton Thorne, the Michigan State quarterback we talked about a couple weeks ago, he is headed to Auburn. So Auburn has its quarterback, which they desperately apparently needed. What do you think, Ross?
Yeah, needed big time. I was down there a couple months ago, and that was a topic in the football building was, can we find a quarterback during the spring transfer portal window? It was pretty obvious that they were looking. They were looking during the winter, and to his credit, Hugh Freeze has been pretty open about that they brought people in. I think they brought in Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina actually took a visit, and then there were some issues with, I believe, the academic, admittance actually, admitting him to the school at Auburn, and based on the hours he had and all that, and so that fell through. And then they brought in NC State quarterback. Is it O'Leary? Not O'Leary. Who am I thinking of, guys? NC State quarterback. Now he transferred to Kentucky.
Devin Leary. Devin Leary.
And they brought him in. So it's clear. I think they wanted one of the two guys. And because of academics, couldn't get one, and another chose somewhere else to go play school. Play school to go play school. Yeah. And so they were looking, and I remember sitting in Hugh Freeze's office, and he said, "Look, we'll be looking in the spring." He had confidence to only a degree in the current quarterbacks he had, but they wanted to add to the competition. So should be interesting. That's a pretty full quarterback room now, and I would guess that he's the favorite, to win that job.
Yeah, I can't imagine Payton Thorne went down there without at least being told he's going to have a very good chance to win that position. And that they were very quarterback poor last year, so that there's room to improve in that area. Can I bring up a college basketball transfer real fast?
Sure.
This is could lead to some intrigue, some late intrigue in the 2023 recruiting in college basketball. So DJ Rodman is transferring from Washington State to USC, where sons of great NBA players apparently are assembling. We've got DJ Rodman, son of Dennis Rodman, Bronny James, son of LeBron James. And the intrigue here is whether another member of the top 10 players in the country of the incoming freshman class may relocate after committing to a school and end up at USC as well. Clutch Sports, LeBron James' agency via Rich Paul, they now have relationships with high school players, with college players, and there is some speculation that there could be at least one more big domino falling USC's way. If you look at the top, like the Rivals top 10.
Who? You got to tell us.
Well, Aaron Bradshaw is the speculation. Oh. Kentucky 7-footer, the number 2 player in the country, according to Rivals.
And he's unsigned?
He is unsigned. So here's the thing. These players have done the smart thing, as I've been saying for years. If you're a top player, don't sign a letter of intent.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know it would necessarily lead to virtual free agency at the end, but the thinking always for me was, if your coach leaves, somehow don't be stuck with somebody you don't want to play for. But this is a different deal altogether. But Isaiah Collier, who is going to USC, verbal. Aaron Bradshaw, verbal. Justin Edwards going to Kentucky, verbal. DJ Wagner, verbal. They didn't sign letters.
Yeah.
So keep an eye just on that. It may not happen, but there's a lot of speculation about that and a lot of nervousness in Wildcat country.
Well, I would imagine, that would be huge. And I can't imagine the James family orchestrating a conglomeration of talent on a team. That doesn't sound like
shocking, right?
Stunning. I'd never signed that. That letter of intent is a one-sided contract. If you've got all the juice and you don't know, what if you sign with West Virginia and then Huggins gets on the damn radio and acts like a a-hole and gets fired? It's like you can't predict what's going to happen. So
correct.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah. USC. It's going to be a good season.
Yeah, really. It's going to be very interesting. But that
we will.
Go ahead. I won't hijack this thing.
So, all right. We'll stay on that ongoing saga.
Yeah.
I wanted to give an update to another ongoing saga. We have we believe we have a mystery solved with the pasta dump in New Jersey.
Oh, all right.
The 500 pounds of what they thought was cooked pasta dumped in the woods in Old Bridge, New Jersey, that, people were it was spaghetti, elbows, alphabet pasta. Turns out the belief is, first it was cleaned up. And then someone in the neighborhood believes that it was a military veteran. I don't know why that matters. Guy was clearing out his deceased mother's home. I don't know. We got to bring the vets in on this, but they don't like pasta. Right. Thank you for your service, but I don't know what the relation is to the story. Oh, well, he's a military veteran. Something you learn in the military about dumping pasta in the woods? I don't know. Anyway, a guy was cleaning out his deceased mother's home, and apparently there was a stockpile of food, perhaps because of COVID, of all this pasta. So the guy threw the pasta into the woods. It was uncooked, but then it rained for like 3 days, so it sopped up, so it looked cooked.
Okay.
This guy Keith Ross says he knows who it is, but was refusing to give out the. He's not going to rat anybody out. I don't know what but I mean, it's so Jersey that you'd have 500 pounds of pasta in your house.
Yeah.
Right?
Just in case.
She was a hoarder? I mean, a hoarder
I don't
of
know.
pasta.
I don't know. So anyway, so it wasn't a restaurant just dumping all their pasta in the woods,
Mystery
apparently.
sauce.
It
That's
went in
good.
dry. But
Olive
still,
Garden is off the hook. Okay.
Yeah.
But,
The breadsticks, though.
yeah.
Don't throw those out. Donate those.
No.
I don't.
I don't know. Does pasta go bad? Because couldn't the guy just take it to a homeless shelter and say, "Here, feed everybody for like 2 months on pasta"?
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe this is like 1980s pasta, and it does go bad. I don't know.
I would like to hear from the perpetrator, but I at least appreciate the mystery is solved, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? This guy could have made up that story, but it seems kind of more believable than someone cooked 500 pounds of pasta, drove a truck into the woods, and then dumped it all.
Yeah.
It's been keeping me up at night.
Hashtag Jersey.
Yep. These are the mysteries that keep the podcast up at night.
Yeah. If you want to sell a book, and I'm always trying to sell epic athletes, I'm gonna put this on.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you're looking at Steph Curry over.
Feel free, Steph Curry. We got Curry,
Wetzel's
LeBron. Get Curry while he's still in the playoffs. No, Curry, LeBron, and KD. You can get all of them. I'm trying to fight the illiteracy of the youth of America, Pat. Yes. No, but if you're trying to sell a book, needs a great plot twist, right? You need a great plot twist. Keep readers excited. And they also tell authors, write what you know, right? Like John Grisham was a Southern lawyer, and then, he writes all these books based on Southern lawyers, all this stuff. So we have this woman here, Curry Richens. She lives in Utah. Curry Richens wrote a book after her husband, Eric, passed away. And the book is called Are You With Me? And it's a children's book for dealing with grief of the death of a loved one, which is obviously a very important subject. And, it's very difficult for children to deal with it. So she wrote it in an effort to try to, help people. You can read the book and all that. Well, it turns out in the plot twist of all plot twists that this week, she was arrested for the murder of Eric Richens.
Write what you know. Yeah. Okay.
Turns out she had said that she had given him a Moscow Mule that night, a celebratory Moscow Mule. I don't know what they were celebrating. But then it was discovered that there was a massive amount of fentanyl in the drink. He was poisoned. Lord. And someone came forward and said they sold her, allegedly. Yeah, he had 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl, which I would just, once again, our hard and fast rule, don't do fentanyl is like the one statement in the world you can make with nobody being like, I disagree.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should consider the other side. Be more sensitive. No, just don't do it. Don't do fentanyl.
Somebody on Twitter would say, well, actually.
Well, yeah, the fentanyl, pro-fentanyl crew is pretty quiet. They found out through her computer and stuff. They found someone who sold her 15 to 30 fentanyl pills in early February. And anyway, she's now arrested for killing the dude. And then she has a book out about dealing with loss.
Wow.
Yeah, thoughts on that, Pat?
That's some cojones, isn't it? I mean, take some gall to write that book after being the accused murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does she have it? Does she have any other relatives? Because they can now experience her loss as she goes into the slammer, and I would hope nobody misses her too much.
What's the next book going to be about?
Life in medium security, or maybe maximum security.
Oh, Jews. Oh, so sad. Also, speaking of our weird stories, there's a story just came across that Bo Jackson did an interview this morning with Kubelik and McElroy, and said for the last 10 months he's been suffering from a chronic case of hiccups. He's having a medical procedure done later this week to remedy the hiccups. Some of these quotes are insane. I have heard about this. Like, people have hiccups for years sometimes, or at least months, and can't get rid of them. But these quotes are amazing by Bo Jackson. This is on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. I've been busy sitting at the doctor's, poking me, shining lights down my throat, probing me every way they can to find out why are these hiccups happening. That's the only reason I wasn't there. And he was talking about some event that he was supposed to attend that he ended up having to bail on. He said, "I have done everything. They've scared me. They've hung me upside down.
Yeah.
I've drank water. Smell the ass of a porcupine is one of the things he's done to try to try to remedy the hiccups. That's amazing.
That's a cure. Like,
Smell
drink water
the ass of a
upside.
Porcupine. Yeah,
That is not a cure. That is someone got caught. Some freak out there got caught. Actually, I should, again, I should be sensitive to the people. Each their own. If you want to smell the ass of a porcupine, whatever. I don't want to call you. I rescind that. I am sorry. The porcupine smelling community, ass smelling community. Someone got caught doing that, and his wife's like, "What are you doing?" First off, I had the hiccups.
I'm curing hiccups. Yeah.
And then basically no one would be able to disprove this because, first off, where do you find a porcupine? And two, you'd have to find a porcupine at the exact same time you have hiccups, and you'd have to come on. Anyway. This is awful. Oh my God, I hate the hiccups.
Yeah, me too. It's taken him out of public life.
In 2016, my daughter got meningitis.
Oh.
And one of the after effects is for months after she ate, she had hiccups.
Ooh.
It would be like for an hour, maybe a half hour after she ate, but it was like every day, every meal. It was not pleasant at all. So I wish we'd had a porcupine handy at that point.
Poor Bo.
I know.
Yeah, that's bad.
I'm having nightmares at the thought of ever getting this. I mean,
having that. I know. Yeah. Now I've just Googled porcupine ass to see what would come up. I don't.
Do we
there's
want to
nothing.
know?
There's nothing here. Yeah. There's nothing here really. There's videos of porcupine scratching its butt.
Porcupine ass hiccups. You got to at least put the hiccups in there.
Hiccups.
Trouble.
Whoops. Let's try that. Hiccups on there. No.
There's something.
Here's the first story is Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson said he's been suffering from hiccups. Yes. It's the first story. And maybe the only maybe the only story, it looks like. So all right, Bo. Maybe he's screwing around.
Maybe he was, I don't believe this is a real thing. Dangerous too. Like that porcupine backs up.
Yeah, right. Don't mess with a porcupine.
You have more than the hiccups to worry about.
Who knows? Who knows, man? People are crazy. All right, that's our show. We'll be back next week with more. Don't bet on sports if you're an athlete. Wind up on our show. Learn from Iowa. We will talk to you later.